Hey guys, and welcome back to the Elevate HD podcast. I am your host, as always, Holly Davidge, and today I'm going to give you a bit of an update on myself because over the past few episodes, I've had lots of wonderful guests on. I've covered a lot of topics that I think would help you in your physique development journey, but I haven't really given you an update on myself, where I'm at in terms of personal life, in terms of competitive aspirations, general chit chat, all that kind of thing. So I thought that would be something to cover today. And you know what's really funny is that I've been putting off doing this podcast. Number one, because I'm like, oh, I hope I have something interesting to share with you guys, but also because I didn't want to do my makeup. So I haven't done my makeup today, and I realize most people probably won't even notice, but it's like those small things where I feel I always need to do my makeup if I'm going to be on a podcast, especially obviously when the visual is going to go on YouTube. And that is what was stopping me from recording this, which is absolutely ridiculous. So here I am with my fresh face. Hopefully you don't mind it. But you know what? I've just recently rediscovered headbands. And I know when I was little, I used to wear headbands all the time. But my problem is my hair is straight now. But when I was younger, I used to have proper ringlets, like really big curls. And now my hair is longer, it's kind of straightened out. But I still have those little ringlets around my hairline and they get quite frizzy. So my hair, even if I spend ages straightening it, it still goes kind of frizzy in the front. So since I've rediscovered my headbands, I've been loving wearing it because my hair looks slicked back. It doesn't look all frizzy at the front, and I feel much more kept and put together. So that is the explanation for the headband that you didn't ask for. But anyway, on to the update. So let's go back to my most recent massing phase. So I did a 4-week mass at the end of May, where I was progressively increasing my calories. I was progressively increasing my training volume with the goal to maximize the muscle development and gain as much muscle tissue as possible in that time frame. So I started off, my macros were 160 protein, 45 fat, and 285 grams of carbs, which was, what was that? 2,185 calories. And over the course of the weeks, as my body adapted, like as we know, usually the calories that you start on will probably end up becoming your maintenance calories as you gain body weight. So I ended up going up to 160 protein, 45 fat, and 310 carbs, which is 2,330 calories, which isn't really close to the highest I've been on. Like post show, when I was trying to gain weight, I ended up getting up to like nearly 3,500 calories, which was absolutely ridiculous and probably not necessary because I did gain quite quickly once I got up to that mark. I think my happiest amount of calories where I'm feeling good, I'm not feeling stuffed, and I'm not feeling super hungry is probably around 2,600 or 2,700. So when I was eating 2,300, even though I was in a massing phase, I still was very, very hungry. My appetite was still there, which there are some positives of course, because I have experienced one time in my life where food gets uncomfortably high. And that was that time where my food was at 3,500 calories, and it isn't pleasant. I always wondered what it would be like to feel that way. I was like, I just don't understand. Like, I've never ever felt like I'm eating too much food, because my appetite is super high just normally. But that time it really did push the boat and I just wasn't feeling comfortable. So this time was much more comfortable because I was enjoying all my food. I was hungry for my meals. I didn't feel stuffed or full going to bed. I just felt it was a perfect amount of food. And it was a really productive massing phase. I felt like I was developing my strength. I felt like I was progressing in the gym. Even though I had a slight trend upwards in body weight, the visuals didn't change in terms of body fat. Like, it seemed like my body fat was staying relatively stable while I was improving body composition, which is usually a good indication that there's being muscle added to that frame, hopefully. So that was really progressive. The only downside to that was it was such a tough time in terms of training that it honestly killed me off. It was a good few weeks of progressing my training, but not only just increasing volume, but the actual density of the session got tougher and tougher each week. And what I mean by that is we would start with straight sets where you would just, do your sets and do your rests in between. We'd add like rest pauses or myo reps and other kind of volume accumulation techniques. So I was not necessarily spending tons of time in the gym, but that time I did spend in the gym was very tough and very dense and a lot of work to get through. Like supersets, like the myo rest pauses, all that kind of stuff meant I was absolutely battered. And by the end of that massing phase, I was completely fried. I just felt wrecked. And it was really hard because I got to the end and I genuinely started to resent going to the gym because I knew when I went it was going to get so hard, and I started developing a little bit of anxiety around it. So following that massing phase, although it was really productive, it kind of killed me off. And I ended up transitioning into a 2 week block of 1 week of maintenance, which is kind of just a deload week, and then 1 week of active rest. So the deload week, you can do it various different ways. You can take the week off the gym if you want. You can do like a devolume where you only do, half the sets or half the weight or various other ways. So what we do is the first half of the week, we do 50% of 2 sets of everything, 50% of the load, and 50% of the reps. And then the second half of the week, we do 2 sets of everything, 100% of the load, and 50% of the reps, just to kind of ease you back in to the training. And yeah, I followed that with an active rest, was just a week completely off the gym, just to do whatever you want to just, keep active in other forms, keep your steps in and everything like that. But during those 2 weeks, I ended up just not training at all because I just felt so fried. I was exhausted mentally and physically from that massing phase. I lost my love of training for a little bit because it was so hard. And I started to scare myself a little bit because I felt, is this it? Like, have I just lost my love for training? Do I just not want to train anymore? I ended up going home to Ireland for a few days to see my parents, spend time with them, and kind of reevaluate what I was feeling and what it meant. But very quickly, I realized that it wasn't my love of training that was dwindling. It was just that the amount of intensity that I was putting on myself and the pressure I was putting on myself to perform at 100% in every single session just got to me. And it just made me realize that I'm only human. I am not a robot as much as I would love to be. And although I love training, I can't go on 100% all the time. It's just not possible. It's not realistic. So kind of having to forgive myself and say, look, not every session is going to be 100%. You're not going to be always 100% motivated to train, but you just need to get in there and give it what you got. And sometimes you can give it 100%, but sometimes you can only give it 80, and that is perfectly okay. And something that I've learned a lot from Jasmine through the years is her acceptance of that as well. And we all see how successful she's done as a result of that. So I reevaluated that. But what I did was, the main thing is that I confronted my coach about it. So I told Joe and I said, look, I know we're going into another training cycle now, and I'm so unmotivated to train. I don't want to go to the gym. I have really bad anxiety when I go there. Like, I was even close to tears in the middle of some sets or in the middle of being on certain movements. And I was developing a really bad relationship with the gym because I just saw it as somewhere where I was going to put a lot of pressure on myself, where I was never going to feel like a success. I was always going to feel like a failure. And I put all of that angst on my shoulders to carry with me whenever I was going to the gym. And he was so good. He was very receptive. He ended up basically implementing a dieting phase for me at that time. But he also took my training volume way down. So he took out all the volume accumulation techniques, so all the rest pauses, all the myo reps, all the supersets that I was doing, and just gave me straight sets to do, really simple training, maybe only like 4 to 6 exercises per session, to help me find my love for training back again. So we implemented this training block with the dieting phase as well. So my dieting phase, we went straight off the bat and we didn't mess around. And this is something I've spoke about on my posts as well, is that when you're in a mini cut phase, you only really have 4 to 6 weeks worth of fat loss to do. If you extend it any longer than that, number one, it's not really going to be a mini cut anymore. But number two, it's going to eat into the time you have available to mass and put on muscle. And with mini cuts, we want to make them short, sharp, and efficient, and make sure they are as productive as possible. So when you want to be short, sharp, and efficient, you don't want to just take away 100 calories, see if you're in a deficit. No, you're not. Okay, take away 100 calories, see if you're in a deficit. No, we're not. You're just wasting time. So in order to not waste the time, it's better to just get in, get out, get it done, and then go back to massing, which is what we did. So I went from nearly 2,400 calories right down to 1,550 calories. And my macros were 150 protein, 30 fat, and 170 carbs, which was obviously a big, massive decrease. So it was about a 700 calorie drop overnight, which meant I was absolutely starving. Like, from day one, I was so ravenous. I was hungry in between my meals. I was thinking about my next meal as soon as I finished my last one. I was lying in bed, like, so hungry that I couldn't sleep. And it did get a bit better. The first week was probably the worst week in terms of hunger. I kind of got used to it by the second and third week. And then by the last week, because I was only doing it for 4 weeks, by the last week, because I knew that it was coming to an end, I started to get really hungry again. I started to keep myself awake being hungry. I was starting to use diet hacks again. Like I had loads of like sugar-free ice pops, sugar-free lollies, sugar-free jelly, all the diet drinks, all the diet hacks. And I felt myself getting into prep mode. And it was actually funny because that level of hunger that I experienced during that mini cut was probably worse than any prep hunger I've ever had. And I think that is definitely a psychological thing, because clearly I'm not as hungry as I was on prep, because, you know, I was super lean then. I was 9-10 kilos lighter than I am now. My food got a lot lower. It got to around like 1100 calories for a while. So it obviously wasn't that I'm hungry now or that I need the food more now, because I don't. But psychologically, I say this to my clients all the time, like, if you have a goal in front of you that's big enough, you can withstand anything. You can handle the hunger, you can handle the pain, you can handle the shit sessions, you can handle the fatigue, because you know that there is this big, exciting goal ahead of you of stepping on stage and getting all glammed up and being in the limelight that you've been working hard for. When you have a mini cut, it is much, much harder to motivate yourself, because there's no big goal. You know, you're literally doing it for damage limitation. You're doing it to pull off some body fat just to potentiate your next massing phase, which is to say, just make it more productive and to stretch out the runway of progression you have when you mass. Because obviously, if you start your mass from a leaner body fat percentage, it means you can mass for a lot longer than if you started from a higher body fat percentage, because you would probably need to diet again prematurely. So you do these, like, it's kind of like a bow and arrow. You do the mini cut to pull the arrow back so that when you let go, your arrow will go really, really far and you'll be able to mass for a lot longer than if you didn't do the mini cut. So that was the thing. So the goal was obviously to pull off some body fat, to get me feeling motivated again. Obviously, when you're doing a fat loss phase, it's much more motivating because you see visual changes a lot faster than if you were to gain muscle. Gaining muscle is such a slow process. You have to be so patient. Sometimes you see no changes at all, because obviously as you gain muscle, you probably also gain some body fat. So the body fat might even be hiding the muscle that you have gained. So you kind of have to, quote unquote, trust the process and get on with it and just hope that you're doing everything you're doing that you need to do to get to where you want to be. But in a dieting phase, as I said, it's much more exciting. It's more motivating. You're seeing changes on a weekly basis. You're seeing the scale go down on a daily basis. And it kind of revs you up and makes you feel that the hard work you're doing and the hunger is paying off, because you're instantly seeing the reward for it. And I think that was Joe's line of thought when he did implement this dieting phase for me. I was by no means in a bad place in terms of body fat before I started the diet. I probably could have masked for a bit longer, but I kind of have spoken about this a lot in a few of my podcasts, is that I don't want to get as heavy this time. I don't feel like it's necessary for me. And I feel like I've done the big push-ups and I've done the heavy off seasons and I'm finished with that now. I want to walk around year round feeling good about myself. I want to be able to wear crop tops when I want to. I want to be able to wear a sports bra in the gym without feeling the need to cover up. I want to wear shorts. I don't want to feel heavy and self-conscious, because I've done it and I did it for a purpose. But now that I've gained a good bulk of the muscle that I need and I'm only refining at this point, I don't want to do that any longer. And I've made that pact with Joe and he's completely agreed with me that we don't need to do it. So I was getting up to around like 63, 64 kilos, which for me is about 10, 11 kilos above stage weight. And that is the extent of where I want to be, pretty much. My last off season before I started prep, I got up to 67 kilos. And for me, it was just too heavy. And saying that, my body weight may be around the same, but my body composition is a lot different this year than it was last year, which is a good sign in terms of muscular development and physique development. But I just don't want to be that heavy this time. So I started this diet on 64 kilos and I finished it at around 60.5 kilos. So I lost about 3.5 kilos in 4 weeks, which is about 7.5 pounds. So it was a really productive mini cut. And to be honest, it was probably my most productive mini cut I've ever done, because every week my body weight was dropping. We didn't make a single change. We made no adjustments to nutrition. I had no cardio at all. I was doing 12,000 steps. That didn't change. So as soon as the diet was implemented on day one until the very last day, 4 weeks later, not a single adjustment was made. So every time I checked in with Joe, he would say, everything's rolling fine. We don't need to make any changes. And that's the beauty of cutting your calories initially by a significant amount, because when you do that, you can get in, you can make progress from day one, and then you can get out again without having to worry about making all these adjustments and changes all the time. So I was really glad we made that significant adjustment, because it meant I could just roll with it. I got used to the low calories and I cracked on. And then in 4 weeks, I made more progress than I ever would have if we decided to chip away, decreasing by 100 calories, 100 calories, 100 calories, because I probably still wouldn't have found a deficit by now. So, and that's where I want to touch on. It is a bit of a myth when people say, don't drop your calories too low straight away, because where do you have to go from there? Your body doesn't adapt to the calories you're eating. Your body adapts based on your body weight. So that is why your metabolism adapts. So as you drop body weight, you burn less calories to maintain your body because you're in a smaller sized body. And that's why your metabolism adapts. Your metabolism does not adapt because you feed it less. So whether you're eating 1,000 calories or 2,000 calories, your body won't adapt to the amount of food you're eating. It will adapt to the body weight that you're on now. And this you can see from rapid fat loss phases. Like people do rapid fat loss phases and cut like 2,000 calories in their diet. If they're a guy, they might eat like 1,500 calories a day, and their body never adapts to it. They just lose every week, um, because it adapts based on the size of their body, not based on the calories, if that makes sense. I see it all the time. I know when I was prepping last year, I said Joe made a massive reduction of my calories one week. I think it was like maybe 400 calories or something like that. And people were replying saying, oh, that's crazy. Where do you have to go from there? You know, your calories are so low already. And I would say, well, I don't have to go anywhere because I'm going to be in a deficit. It's just established for me now. And that's definitely a common misconception that I hear. So yeah, 7.5 pounds in 4 weeks. I was really, really happy. And you know what? This is like the first time at this body weight and at this stage of an off season where I have felt so confident in my physique. I feel really happy with how I look. I'm really comfortable. I'm wearing anything I want. Like I'm buying any clothes I want. I'm just buying like cute little dresses and cute little shorts and cute little t-shirts and not feeling self-conscious at all. And I'm nowhere near stage lean. And if you were to say to me back in November when I was stage lean, you know, you're going to be pretty happy when you're like 9 kilos above stage weight, I wouldn't have believed you, because all I wanted was to be absolutely shredded all the time. But now looking back on little Holly, who's so shredded and tiny, I'm like, she just looks so small and frail and unhealthy. Whereas looking at me now, where I have life back in me, I have shape, like having that shape back in my legs and the fullness of my legs and having that like hourglass X-frame shape we all want, like that I've really found I've appreciated it now, which is really nice. So this whole summer, haven't been self-conscious at all. I've worn whatever I wanted to. I've worn cute dresses, I've worn t-shirts, I've worn shorts, I've worn anything I wanted and felt good. And to me, that's absolutely invaluable. And it kind of gives me information about where I would like to sit when I do finish competing, and what kind of body I would like to sit in, because I would have always thought that I'd want to be as lean as possible when I finish competing because I wouldn't need to like build muscle anymore. But now I'm kind of realizing that life is quite nice when you are a bit softer and you have more shape to your body and you have an hourglass frame and clothes fit you a lot nicer and they're not just hanging off you like you're, you know, a clothes hanger, which no one wants. So it definitely gives me some indication there. So yeah, that was my mini cut. So from yesterday, I checked in with Joe. He was really happy with the progress. So he has upped my food again to get back to massing. So my new food will be 160 protein, 45 fat, and 250 carbs, which is I think 2,040 calories around. So a bit of like a jump of about 500 calories. And a lot of people also might be thinking, wow, that's a lot of calories to jump up by initially. But the thing is, my rate of loss was so quick that realistically, I'm still in quite a bit of a deficit of 1,500. So to get myself back up to maintenance, it's not going to take 100 or 200 calories. I'll realistically still be in a deficit if I reverse out that slowly. So going back up to 500 calories means that, for example, say my rate of loss was a pound a week. So a pound a week of body fat is 3,500 calories. That is about 500 calories a day. So by increasing my food by 500 calories, it means I'll maintain the weight I'm at, basically. So it's a bit of maths, all of this game. So I'm pretty happy with that. It's nice to get a nice bump in food. The main thing I have with the issue is that now that I have finished my diet, I have been invited to a lot of food places. So if you guys don't know, I do run a food page on Instagram. It's at Hungry Holly Diaries. And for some reason, since I've come to Manchester, it has popped off. And I'm getting a lot of restaurant invites for kind of PR, like press release events and stuff like that. And I haven't been able to go to them while on my diet. I have gone to a few of them, but I haven't been able to eat at them. I went to a dessert place last Sunday and I took photos of all the food, and now they're in my freezer because I was like, I am not ruining my diet when I'm like 3 days away from finishing it. So I have at least 2 a week for the foreseeable future. So it's all about navigating those meals out while also not gaining too quickly, because obviously the goal is to gain and to put on muscle, but I don't want to gain at such a fast rate that I'll have to diet it again really soon. So I'm trying to develop a strategy that allows me to, eat my meals day to day and be hungry and be satisfied, but without blowing it on those meals when I go out to eat. So obviously it's really important to adopt like an informed approach to eating in this respect, in terms of, chewing my food thoroughly, savoring the meal, being more mindful in my approach, being more intuitive. And that's a skill. And it's a skill that I've developed quite well over the years, in that I don't tend to see massive weight fluctuations when I do go out to eat now. I manage it quite well, but it still requires me to be present and me to be quite conscious about what I'm eating. I can't just go balls to the wall every single time I eat out and expect it all to be right, because it won't be, and I will gain weight from that. So it's about going, enjoying my food, but knowing when to stop and knowing that I don't have to eat everything right now, even though it's on my plate. And that's something I have to remind myself of all the time, because it is easy to say, well, I've ordered this thing and it's right in front of me. Like, I feel like I have to eat it so I don't waste food. But you can always bring it home with you. That's what I always say. Like, even if you only eat half the pizza and you don't want to waste it, bring the rest home. You can either freeze it, or you can eat it a few days later, or you can incorporate a slice into your calories the next day. That's what I would say would be a good strategy. Just realize that it's always going to be there. But yeah, it is interesting because I love food. I'm such a foodie. I am obsessed with going out to eat. I love the whole experience of it. I'm not really a massive takeaway person or an eat at home person, because I love the experience of like going to restaurants, having the atmosphere around, having the ambience there. But at the same time, I want to make sure that I am intelligent about my approach to this. So that is my update for you. But I have had a few questions I thought I would answer, because I did ask a question box on my stories. So if you see it next time, make sure you ask questions so you can get involved. They are very random, by the way, but I just thought I'd put it out there just in case. The first one is, have you driven your car yet? And if you don't know, there is a running joke that I got my license back in January of 2020, but I have actually not really driven since then. So I moved to the UK in October of 2020, and ever since I left 3 years ago, I have not driven, and I've never had a car. But for my new job, I had to buy a car. So I bought a car after much deliberation, because initially I was like, I have no idea about cars. But I did a bit of research and I decided to buy a pink Toyota Aygo, who is the cutest thing in my life. Her name is Fliss and she's gorgeous. But I am a little bit nervous about driving, just because I haven't really driven in the UK roads before, especially not the motorways, because in Ireland we don't have that many motorways. We have like a couple, and we never really have to drive on them if you don't want to, especially around Dublin. So I'm developing my confidence back again. But yes, I have driven my car several times. I drive her at least once a week, either to the gym or to go food shopping. So I haven't ventured past that yet. I did drive to Altrincham with my parents once, and that was quite stressful because the motorway was really busy and it was quite chaotic on the roads. But I'm getting better and my nerves are calming. So fingers crossed, if I just keep doing that, I'll get better. But if anyone wants to volunteer and accompany me on a trip, I'd much appreciate that. You just have to sit there and just be there for me while I ask you questions. But to be fair, I probably won't ask you a question because I pretty much know what I'm doing. I just need someone to give me the confidence boost and be my cheerleader in the driving seat, basically. Next question is from Joppo Nutrition. It says, why are you a legend? And you know what, Joppo? I ask myself this question every day. I just don't know. No. Thank you very much, Joppo. If you don't know, Joppo is incredible. Joppo was on my podcast a few weeks ago. So if you want to go listen to his podcast to my podcast with him on it, make sure you go and check it out because it's a very good episode and he is quite a character. And I actually want to have him back on because what I want him to do is interview me on my own podcast so you guys can get to know me a little bit, because maybe he'll delve into parts of my being and my mind that I wouldn't have done without him, because he is quite perceptive and he asks really good questions, like really thought-provoking questions that kind of get the brain going. So I'm going to ask him to come on, so we need to organize that. Another question, top tips for productivity. Not sure how you manage a full-time job, coaching and Insta. So it's definitely hard, and it's something that even recently I've struggled with balancing. If you guys don't know, I live by myself. So, and I was literally just speaking to my friend Catherine about this at dinner last night. When you live by yourself and you like working, it's very hard to wind down because I get up, I go for a walk in the morning, I work from like 8 till 5, my normal job. Then I'll go to the gym, then I'll get back from the gym, and it's probably around 7:30 before I start all the rest of my work in terms of coaching, in terms of Instagram content, in terms of everything like that. I will reply to clients like at lunchtime and in the morning and stuff like that. But in terms of like my bulk coaching work, I do that in the evening. So trying to switch off before bed is very difficult because I don't really want to, because I want to work, because I love working. But I would say when you're trying to manage a full-time job and a coaching business, you really need to strategize your whole time. So obviously I have 8 till 5 blocked off every day, Monday to Friday, where I don't work. I do all my check-ins on a Saturday. So all my clients know to check in with me on a Saturday. I do all my programming for new clients or clients who need new training blocks or any adjustments like that on Saturday and Sunday. And then I do all my responses during the week, morning, lunchtime, and evening. And then that's pretty much how I do it. I try and multitask. Like when I'm getting steps, I'll reply to clients. I might do content while I'm on the go. I might chat to people in my DMs in the middle of my walks. Like I will try and do that. Maybe in the middle of sets if I'm being bold. But yeah, I think it is all about planning ahead. I would suggest like sitting down on a Sunday and just mapping out your week in advance, either doing it on like Google Calendar or doing it just the manual way, like down on a piece of paper. I think the organization is absolutely key in terms of making sure you're on top of things. And also just don't worry if you're not perfect, because it's not going to be perfect. If you miss a day of content, just be on it and be honest and make sure people are aware of what you're going through and everything. But thankfully, my clients are amazing and they know that if they check in on a Saturday, they're going to get their feedback on a Saturday, and just to make sure that they do it on time. I think that is the main thing. And yeah, just being organized, but forgive yourself if you're not perfect, because not everyone is. Uh, what other questions do I have? I always get this question, obviously on an anonymous question. Are you single? And you know what? I'm not going to answer that because I'm going to be annoying. Next question. How do you figure out your maintenance after prep? First prep and wondering what maintenance will be after and how long or short it will take to get there. So this is something I just touched on literally. It's going to take as long or as short as you want it to. I would suggest taking your rate of loss that you had on prep, and say you were 500 calories in a deficit. That means just add 500 calories more and just jump straight back to maintenance initially. Don't try and incrementally add like 50 calories at a time, 100 calories at a time, because you're just going to prolong your deficit even longer. And you're going to end up being in a deficit for far longer than you need to be, especially when you're on prep at the back end and you're super lean. You don't want to be in a deficit where you're dropping body fat for longer than you need to be, because obviously it's not a healthy state to be in. So I would suggest taking your rate of loss. If you're losing a pound a week, then that means you're in a 500 calorie deficit. Add that back in, and then you just monitor it. Then you just weigh yourself every day. You take the averages, you spot the trends over time. And if you're still dropping, you need more food. If you're gaining too fast, you can pull it back down. If you're maintaining, then you hit it. So I think that is the main thing you need to consider there. Favorite part about competing. So I didn't actually get into my competing plans this episode. Maybe that'll be for another episode. I love it all. I love the prep. I love the challenge of the prep. I love being lean. I don't find prep too challenging for the most part. I love being on stage. I love the glamour of show day. I love posing. I absolutely love posing. I love doing my routines. I love meeting like-minded people on show day, and the backstage banter is so much fun. I love being in the limelight, even though I do get very, very nervous, but I love it. I love like the adrenaline rush you get when you come off stage. It's just a great day, and it depends on the federation as well. But some federations put on really, really good shows, so it's just enjoyable the whole day. Having your family and friends there with you, it's just so much fun. So yeah, that is what I love about it. I will touch on this, my competitive plans. So I was never meant to compete at all this year, so I've always maintained that I will take this year off, which I will. So the question is whether I compete next year or not, and if I do, what side of the season do I want to be? I kind of want to go early next year, because I always do the back end of the season, September, October, and I kind of would fancy not being on prep the whole summer, because obviously it does prevent you from doing a lot of fun things. So I think initially maybe April, May, June time I might compete, but that means I have to start prep either before Christmas or literally just as Christmas finishes into the new year. So we will see about that. But yeah, fingers crossed. So I'm not gonna be able to do any more questions because my laptop is about to die and I don't want it to quit on me, and I don't have my charger anywhere. So I will wrap this up, but thank you guys so much for listening. If you did enjoy the episode, please take a screenshot, share it to your story, tag myself. I'm at Holly_Physique Collective. If you want to follow me on there, you can also sign up to my email list if you click the link in the description. Give this podcast a 5-star rating and review if you love it. That would really help and appreciate it so much. But that's pretty much it. So thank you guys so much for listening, and we will catch you in the next one.